So you feel stuck in your creative business, you don't know how to get to that next level. I'm gonna share with you the question that I share with all of my agency coaching clients on day one of coaching, and that is, what type of business do you want to build? My name is Sean Tambagahan. I'm the owner of Butler Branding. We are a creative agency in Central California. We help brands find their identity and create cool content, but we also teach the business of creativity to other creative entrepreneurs. In this video, I want to share with you the very first day of agency coaching. When other agencies or creative entrepreneurs hire me to do coaching in their business, they always think the number one thing that they struggle with is how to make more money, how to get new clients. And the very first question I ask them is, what type of business do you want? Now, it might sound like a stupid or a simplistic question, but it goes beyond more than just like, well, I want to have a design studio, or I want to have a video agency or a social media agency. When I'm talking about what kind of business you really want, there's really 4 questions that I want you to consider in doing this kind of mental exercise to bridle your expectations out of what you're trying to get from your business. And so the first question is, what type of business do you want, is custom creative services versus productized. Let me define what those mean and talk about a little bit about the pros and cons. By the way, I'm not for any one of these things. It's really about what matters for you, or what you want for your business. So it's not like custom versus productized. Custom is way better than productized, or productized is better than custom. It really depends on what you're trying to build. So a custom creative services business is someone who really cares about the creative output. They're really emotionally or professionally tied to the creative work that comes out of their business. And so if you are, for example, an identity designer and you really care about the craft of brand identity, and you want to spend meticulous time creating beautiful mock-ups and having multiple concepts and really landing on that one right brand identity for your client, you might be a custom creative service business. If you're a videographer and you really care about the cinematography and the storytelling, and you want to spend a lot of time on your work because this is going to be a representation of who you are as a company, you might be a custom creative services company. Productized, these are creative service companies that create a good enough product, but they do it en masse, at scale. And so you have a really clear process that anybody that is a talented enough creative can follow, and they're following your process, and you can produce a ton of this type of work. So for example, if you're a web designer, maybe you have a really solid process of creating templated websites for WordPress or Squarespace, and you follow a very strategic framework that pretty much anybody can follow, you might be building a productized creative service business. So the pros and cons. Custom creative services, they're usually charging a premium. So you can charge a lot more money because the expected end result of what you're creating is gonna be at a much higher level. But you also have to bridle your expectations of, you're not gonna be able to scale as big or as fast as you might want to, because you're gonna need rock star creatives, you're gonna need really refined processes and the right people, because the creative work is so important. Whereas productized, you're gonna be able to push out a lot more work faster, but you're probably gonna work not at the premium cost as a custom creative service company. You'll probably have to charge a little bit lower on the price scale. And so you have to kind of figure out where you're fitting. Are you trying to create really custom work, or are you not so like super emotionally tied to the end result, and you want to get a good enough product and you want to scale a bigger company? You might think about productized. So what do you want to build? Custom creative services or productized? Second question I always ask is, are you trying to build an agency or a studio? A lot of misconceptions from creative entrepreneurs. They think that a studio means small and an agency means big. And that's really not what the distinction is. You can have a really big studio. For example, Pentagram is like one of the world's largest graphic design studios. What makes them a studio is not because of their size, it's because of their disciplines. They focus in on graphic design, primarily identity design. They have dozens of employees and they work in some of the biggest brands, and they charge tons of money even though they are a studio. So a studio normally focuses on one discipline. So it might be graphic design, identity design, it might be videography, it might be photography, it might be a social media content studio. The difference between a studio and an agency is an agency, by nature of being an agency, is multi-disciplinary. So that means you're having multiple disciplines within one house. Okay, so you have to determine, am I trying to be a studio, really have high expertise in one discipline, or do I want to add multiple disciplines? For example, content writing, graphic design, website design, photography, video, social media content. The more disciplines you add, you're probably trying to be an agency. Now, there's a little word of warning in here. If you are a solo agency, meaning you're a single person that is operating as an agency, you're the one person that's doing all of the work, you might be perceived as being like the Swiss Army knife. The Swiss Army knife does a lot of things really poorly. Like, nobody buys a Swiss Army knife and is like, hey, I have the best knife in the world. It's like a really crappy knife. It's a crappy corkscrew. It's a bad screwdriver. Like, nobody wants a Swiss Army knife because it doesn't really do anything well. It does a lot of things really poorly. And if you're a single person agency, like you're doing all of the creative work, the expectation or the perception is that you might be like the Swiss Army knife. Now, if you are a toolbox, that is more of a collective of highly specialized tools that do one thing really well. So an agency that has multiple people, multiple specialists, like we have a specialist for content writing, we have a specialist for graphic design, we have a web designer, we are a collective of different people, whether they're employees or contractors, then the perception is you're doing higher level work at the agency level. And so what do you want? Custom creative services or productized? Are you trying to build an agency that's multidisciplinary, or do you want to get deep expertise in one discipline as a studio? Third question is, are you trying to do this solo or as a team? A lot of people think like, hey, in order for me to be successful, I need to build a big team. And that is false. It really depends on how you're built and the type of business that you're trying to create. For me and Butler Branding, I didn't want to just do creative work. I love doing creative work, but I wanted to build a culture and an atmosphere. I wanted to build a team. I wanted to have offices that people enjoyed coming to and collaborating together. I wanted to build a team. That's not for everybody. Some people are really good at just doing their one thing, and they're really good at being a solopreneur. And there's a lot of really successful people that have built creative businesses just by themselves being solo. So don't feel this pressure like in order to be successful or to be big, I have to build a team. You could build a really big and successful company as a solopreneur. So are you trying to do this on your own, build a name for yourself, or are you trying to actually build a team? If you're trying to build a team, then you're gonna have to invest in yourself, not only in your craft and how to run the business, but also in leadership development, in team dynamics, in culture building. Is that the route you wanna go? I talked to a lot of creative entrepreneurs who have the idea of a team, but when it comes to implementing what it means to actually start and build and grow and foster a healthy team, it's really not in them. And there's no shame in that if you're really called to build something solo. So custom versus productized, agency versus studio, solo versus a team. And the last thing is, do you want to be a generalist or a specialist? So there's this book called Range by David Epstein, and it's an argument as to why generalists are succeeding in an age of radical specialization. And there's this big argument in the creative space that there is riches in niches, so that if you want to be successful financially in your creative business, you have to go really drill down into a very particular niche, or else you're not going to be successful. And I just completely disagree with that. For one, there's too many examples of successful agencies and creative businesses that are generalists, meaning they work in multiple different industries. They're not just having deep expertise in one industry. There's so many examples. Butler Branding, for example, we aren't the end all be all, but we have had a measure of success and not zeroing in on one particular industry. We work with nonprofits, for-profits, we work with coffee shops, we work with healthcare, government agencies, even custom design dancewear for cheerleaders. We worked with all kinds of different industries, and we found success in doing that as a generalist. The second reason is because a lot of times people kind of like think in their mind of the specialty they want to go into, the industry that they really want to focus in. And it might be a passion of theirs. Like, hey, I really like graphic design and I love craft beer. And so I'm going to be the graphic designer for craft beer companies. That might be good and well, but you might be missing out on a few different questions like, is there a need in this market for what I do? What is the market saturation? Like, what is the market share that I have potential? Do I have any connections or experience or any ins into that industry to find my specialty? And so you might have in your mind an idea of the specialty or the industry that you want to specialize in, but if you don't have a wide range of options or experience to draw from, you're just kind of guessing. And so in David Epstein's book, he talks about even starting out as a generalist, getting a broad range of experience before you find your narrow area of specialty. Maybe you already have the connections. Maybe you already have the portfolio. Maybe you already have the expertise in that specialty. That's totally fine. You can get deep expertise and charge a premium if you are a specialist. But if you're a generalist, you can apply what's called lateral thinking, taking ideas and concepts and strategies you've learned from one industry and applying them to the next, and building a kind of a toolbox of creative tools to pull from different industries. And so you could be successful as a generalist or as a specialist. Hopefully this is helpful. If you feel stuck in your business and you want to grow, ask yourself this question. What type of business do I want to build? Is it a custom creative services company versus productized? Am I trying to build an agency or a studio? Am I trying to do this solo, or do I really want to build a team? And am I going to be a generalist or a specialist? This video is helpful. Click like. Hopefully you've subscribed. Check out agency.butlerbranding.com for more resources and information.